So you went to the Himalayas, and how was that?
You're as close to God as you possibly can be in the physical world, because obviously it's the highest region of the planet. I had the most spiritual physical experience of my life. It was out of a helicopter wearing a full oxygen mask. The doors open, you see, like, I'm in parallel with Everest. At that moment, it's like you're basically existing within the universe, because you're in between the clouds and the stratosphere, and you're free falling over the most powerful natural elements of all time. So you're just like, I am encased by God right now.
Did you cry?
I was even beyond crying. You're just so connected to like the divine laws of the universe and nature when you're walking through it.
One of the things that I'm learning on this like manifestation journey is like, for a long time, I looked at trees and I was like, man, you guys are on another level of consciousness, because you don't move anywhere, you don't go anywhere, everything comes to you.
Yeah.
How can I be like that? What do you think of 48 Laws of Power? Because I read it and it's an interesting book, and I don't know why I got the theme that the whole book was a survival state of consciousness.
100%.
Someone trying to survive in a community.
Yeah.
Whereas I was like, could there be another way of existing where the way that you operate is under different physical laws and metaphysical laws? As in, you don't need to bend down, you don't need to acquiesce, you don't need to do all those things, because the universe will always create a path for you
100%.
If you hold that frequency, if you hold that energy. I was interested to see like what
it's strategies for the three-dimensional world without harnessing the power of the 4D. Yeah. So in terms of like exactly what you're saying, it's very much like it's survival consciousness as opposed to abundance consciousness. In terms of like it's very much like if there's limited time, scarce resources, and everyone wants to get to the top, it's like that set of thinking rather than creating win-win situations.
Right.
I think that like blending the 3D and the 4D though is extremely important. Like you need to have like the 3D sort of strategies when it comes to these sorts of side of things.
Yeah.
Like especially in business, in fitness, in finances, and all that sort of stuff. You need to have like there's the 3D is, I guess, the physical rules of the playing field that you have to adhere to a certain extent, but knowing that like the 4D or the fourth dimension is like completely infinite.
Yeah. And
you can manipulate the 3D in any way that you basically want to kind of create like a win-win across like absolutely everyone. But that book's very much like a me versus you, rather than like and even all the stuff about like, you know, the working together isn't like, you know, law number 1 was like never outshine your superiors or whatever. It's still like, even though it's about working with someone, but it's working with someone to get exactly what you want rather than creating that win-win scenario.
Yeah, it's always like the way that I read the book is you're trying to get to somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's 3D.
Yeah.
Whereas where you look at it more from a higher state of consciousness, it's like you already have where you're trying to get to, so you don't need to play those tricks or tactics to get to where you need to get to, because you have it in you already.
And everything just like beautifully and brilliantly just kind of falls into your lap.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you have to. My favorite thing is just like essentially, I think that discipline and execution and forward momentum are extremely important, but that's not going to get you ultimately to where the outcome that you're looking to get to basically is. It's all of the serendipitous things that basically happen like along the pathway.
Right.
The things that obviously like align while you're basically doing that, and the only way that things align while you're doing that is if you do the forward momentum, do the execution, do the discipline, and take the actions, knowing the end outcome is going to just like naturally work itself out, basically.
It's like catch and release.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be able to put the seeds into the ground. Then you have to be able to do all the work and then just let it go. Let nature's course
100%.
Take its play.
Yeah.
Allow it to grow, allow it to regenerate, allow it to come out. Because you can't rush that process. You can't force it. And that's like one of the things that I'm learning on this like manifestation journey. It's like, for a long time I looked at trees and I was like, man, you guys are on another level of consciousness, because you don't move anywhere, you don't go anywhere, everything comes to you.
Yeah.
You create oxygen, you take in water, you transmute sunlight into energy. How can I be like that? So I was like, I just didn't do anything for a long time. I was like, all right, I just had the belief system that, all right, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's come to me. But then I realized for a long time, trees go through a lot of shit before they're growing. They have to, endure the elements. They have to grow. They have to be able to survive. But once they're at a specific stage in their journey, only then when they start to attract and they can stand tall and strong.
100%.
Yeah.
I think it's like, yeah, you have to work yourself and how that translates to life is you have to meet the universe halfway, I always find. And meeting the universe halfway is just like, is putting in the work to kickstart the photosynthesis or the growth process within yourself to get to that point where you can meet the universe in terms of like, I'm a person of value and I have value to give and I have value to share, and I've like learned how to cultivate my own energy. And then it's like, cool, we can take you on the ride. Because you've almost like, you've sort of like, not that you have to prove that you're worthy, but you've proven that you're willing. You got to see your own worth, and that you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
Because like the work that's obviously a 3D law, but you have to be able to match that to like match the cadence of the intensity of the universe, like then take you on the craziest journey of all time. It's like one of the, we were talking about the Himalayas before, like.
So you're an explorer, you're an entrepreneur, you're a philosopher, and where do you get all these? Like you were talking about the Himalayas, like where do you get the ideas and where do you get the inspiration to go to a place like that?
So I think it's basically like there's an inherent side of that that's been in my entire family tree since like birth, basically. Like my whole dad's side of the family are like all super adventurous, right? Like they all came to Kenya from India, like, at the age of like 9, 10, like sort of by themselves.
I love how they do that, eh?
It's crazy.
Just pack up and go across the world.
Yeah.
Start a business out of nowhere.
When they're like literally 10 years old.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
and literally like
back then it's like,
mad respect, dude.
Rock up on the shores, just smoking a cigarette when you're 11 years old, build the railways, like retire, build a farm, like build the family wealth from the age of 60 to 80, whereas like over here, that's like retirement age kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously kind of passed on to the next generation. So there was that sort of element, but then also like dad was massive into outdoor adventure. Like my auntie Nishi, so she's the dad's sister, she just completed a project in Kenya, in Africa, called the 7 Peaks in 7 Weeks to raise funds for like a cancer-based charity out of Kenya. So she's like 62 and climbing like the 7 biggest mountains in like Africa in like 7 weeks and that sort of stuff as well. It's like it's been in the blood for quite a while, and like all my cousins are adventurers and explorers and that kind of thing. But when I started my business back in 2015, back then I was very much a creature of like modern comfort, and I hadn't like connected to like my wild adventurous side for quite a while. And then it was sort of like in 2020, 2021, like inspired by my younger brother who's always in the great outdoors, always doing like all sorts of crazy epic adventures and that kind of thing. I was like, you know what, I want to like do something that's like super far outside of my comfort zone in that sort of space. So me and one of my best mates, we hiked a 5-day section of the Bibman Track, which is like, also you talk about all of this, like the Bibman Track in WA, man, is quite literally a spiritual home. Like I would highly recommend.
Like, how would you say it's spiritual home?
You're just so connected to like the divine laws of the universe and nature when you're walking through it. And there's just like there's a smell in the air, there's an element of, there's like an energy in the air, and you're just surrounded by just like bush and life. Yeah. But there's a very, very, very special feeling that you get there. And at every single one of the huts that you basically stop at every 20 Ks roughly, for the night kind of thing, there's a book. And in that book, it's like, it's by the Bibman Track Foundation. It's this massive, gigantic ledger that people just come and they'll just write.
Man, and this sounds like a quest in a game.
It is, 100%. And like, you'll just write everything that's in like the deepest, darkest parts of your mind and soul into this book. And you're reading everyone else's like, and so was
the wildest thing you read in there?
Just people like, overcoming massive addiction journeys and that kind of thing by just taking 60 days off to walk the entire track end to end. And like the amount of mental clarity and the amount of internal processing and people working out their like hardcore attachment issues and childhood traumas and like, figuring out like why their partner left them and like, working out why all the projects they've ever taken on as potentially failed or whatever it basically is. It's like all these things that like make people feel so vulnerable. Yeah, they'll just openly journal it into this book. And you're reading this sort of stuff being like, and getting inspired to be like as vulnerable as you possibly can. It is.
It's a release, man. Yeah. People don't like, we're sort of like stuck in this matrix, or a vast majority of the population stuck in this matrix, this rat race of always doing things, no time to go out and actually enjoy the things that make them happy. And I think like having that time out, being able to walk, just being able to just go on a journey, like it would make the biggest difference in your life. Like all the things that you need to process would naturally come up through the body's 100%. Intelligence.
Because, and why I say it's like a real spiritual, like what I found when I was there was, it's almost like the second you are walking the Bibman Track, it's almost like you just get sucked into a vortex.
It probably is some sort of energetic vortex.
It's a vortex of this beautiful pathway that's been created for 1,000 kilometers from like Perth all the way down to Albany through like all the best natural landscape in the southwest. and you're in this vortex, and when you're in there, it's almost like you get the craziest sleeps of your whole life, the deepest vivid dreams you've ever had, and like all these self-processing epiphanies and that kind of thing that like may have taken you years just hit you all in the face at like kind of one hit. It was weird.
Now, man.
Yeah,
the present.
Well, what was crazy was like after I came back, I had to take about a week just to process everything, and I was on no psychedelics, I was on no drugs, like no alcohol, like nothing. And I just came out and I was like, that was a trip, because everything that's been latently from like head to toe stored in the body all just came out and like kind of like dissipated within nature. But then like I had to like process everything that came up during that entire thing. And it was like crazy stuff from like back in the day and that kind of, and this is like in a week, and I was like, wow. And I enjoyed it so much. And I was like, this is my outlet. This is like my therapy. This is like what I'm meant to be doing, and this is like something I have to reconnect with like over time. And from there, the adventures just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously, like, you know, when you start doing something that's authentically like within your soul, you start attracting people into your life that are into bigger and bigger and bigger things. So in 2022, I did this event called the Cadre Camp at the Mill Gym, which is like known as Australia's like, I guess, toughest like endurance event basically. So it's like 36 hours of hell week. You're not eating, you're barely drinking, you're not sleeping, anything like that. And it's just like crazy, like Navy SEAL style like endurance challenge. And from there, I met like a really good friend who was on the exact same course. And through him, I met like people that kind of became like my adventure buddies. And these guys think on like, that's Lockie and Cam that I was telling you about before. They think on like massive levels, because they're just like they literally do adventure as a living kind of thing. And this idea for this crazy Himalayan expedition that I had like lying within me from watching this, from reading Nims's book that got turned into a Netflix documentary, like I had this idea planted in my head of like creating a mega expedition. But it was just like such a big thing to even comprehend and kind of consider that like doing it by myself was just like...
Himalayas, man, the largest, tallest mountains on the planet. Like, you damn well better go with someone.
100%. And then like, you know, as soon as I made that decision, it's like the people that were meant to come into my life to do this, we just bang, came in sort of straight
Crazy
away.
when you make the decision to just go. Like, man, reality's really been weird recently. Like, weird in the way where it's like, I feel like a kid again. Like, you know that wonder you have with life when you look at it, you're like, wow, man, this is amazing. There was a period of my life where everything was like just gray and black and white, and everything was boring. And I downloaded this like malware from society that this is what reality is. This is it. But ever since I went to South America, ever since I went and worked with ayahuasca over there and spent a few years in the Amazon rainforest back and forth.
Oh wow.
Yeah, man. Working with shamans, working with the community over there. Everything's just changed, dude. Like everything's alive. There's intelligence in the trees, there's intelligence permeating through the winds, there's messages coming to you throughout your body, throughout sensations, guides, whatever you can call it. And coming back to what you said, if you just listen, if you just give yourself the time to process these things, this is our innate birthright. And then reality becomes a game. It's literally becomes a game. Like, you find your team members, you level up, you go on quests, you go on missions, you go on, I was going to say heists, but none of that.
Yeah.
Like, GTA, right?
That's a thing to do it, yeah. But yeah, no, 100%. And
so you were on the mount, so you went to the Himalayas, and how was that?
It was, just the craziest expedition of our entire lives. And that was another thing where we realized that like we set a goal that was so massive.
That's huge.
That like, even if you...
Did you go to the top?
Yeah, so basically like the Himalayas is obviously a mountain range. There's like hundreds of mountains in the Himalayas.
Okay.
The biggest one's obviously, the most famous one's Everest.
How was the energy there?
You're as close to God as you possibly can be in the physical world, because obviously it's the highest region of the planet. So like, long story short, the expedition itself was magical. We actually climbed Island Peak, which is a 6,200 meter peak, Lobushe, which is 6,100. And we attempted Amadablam, which is like one of the hardest peaks to climb in the Himalayas, which is like a 7,000 meter peak. And we nearly got there. We had to turn around. Most of us had to turn around on summit day, because it was just like, that was where it was just like
challenging.
It was crazy challenging, and like that was just like if I went any further, I would have risked death, basically.
Did you see any animals while you were climbing?
No. There's like there's very sparse wildlife. No, because I mean, like, nothing can really survive up there. But what the craziest part about it was during that process. Sorry.
What about anything like paranormal?
Not so much paranormal, but like I had the most spiritual physical experience of my life, because after the expedition, basically, like during it, and this is a crazy full circle moment. So the guy that inspired us to get into the Himalayas, Nims, the guy that's got that Netflix documentary, at the start of the expedition, on social media, he announced that he was like launching a skydiving drop zone, where you basically like you dive over the Himalayas, like essentially like in parallel with like the highest peaks in the Himalayas, like Everest, Lhotse, Nuptse, all these crazy ones, right? And the ticket price on it was like $25,000 US. But it was one of those things where, like, so Lockie, one of my really close mates, he's quite big on social media. So he just like, reached out to Nims and like tried to like, negotiate a bit of a deal to get all the boys and like got on one of the first ever skydives on like across Himalayas and that kind of thing as well. Anyway, long story short, it's like we ended up turning around on that last mountain and we ended up getting back to Namche Bazaar, which is like the main kind of hub town, right in time for us to basically hop on that like first skydive in the first drop zone in the Himalayas, basically. So we were like, me and my mate Alec were one of the like first Aussies to do that skydive.
Yo, that's insane.
The price like was like literally 90% off kind of thing, because we were doing a bit of a social media kind of promotions deal with him, that kind of thing as well. Like really hooked us up. And what was amazing was like after that, we just like connected with the biggest mountaineer on the planet, like the biggest mountaineer on the planet, who's one of our heroes. He took us out for like a couple wicked nights out back in Kathmandu, that kind of thing as well. And like that was a moment that I realized that the universe truly does come full circle when you commit to like massive multi-year goals, because that book and that documentary got us inspired. And after the craziest expedition that we basically did, and this is like our first proper Himalayan expedition as well. Most people will go to like Lopusha Island Peak. We set the goal to summit Amadablam, which is actually harder than Everest. And we trained for it, and we like set the sights that high, nearly got there, just had to turn around at the last minute. But then like we not only met Nims, but we fucking skydived with him, like over the Himalayas. And going back to the most spiritual moment of my life was, it was out of a helicopter wearing a full oxygen mask. The doors open. You see, like, I'm in parallel with Everest. I'm in parallel with like Lhotse, in parallel with like Nuptse. These like some of the Himalayan giants. And then like out of like a military style helicopter, you just like free fall.
Yeah.
And at that moment, it's like you're basically existing within the universe, because you're way above the clouds. Like you're in between the clouds and the stratosphere, and you're free falling over the most powerful natural elements of all time. So you're just like, I am encased by God right now.
Man.
It was the biggest perspective shift I've ever experienced in my entire life. And even just thinking about it now, like I'm just like struggling to believe that it's almost real. And then we landed back at the drop zone, and I was just like,
did you cry?
I was even beyond crying. It was like, it wasn't even tears. It was just like,
cry.
It was just an inward, like, just like such an awe of like, I've really experienced that energy.
That's crazy.
Which was fucking nuts.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And
after being there for 35 days as well.
35 days is a good time.
It's a good time, and it just like, it's enough time for you to forget about when you're out there. And like, obviously I love my partner, I love my parents, I love my family, I love everything that I've got here. But after that much time over there, when you're 17, 18 days in, it's the definition of just like, this is all there is. Like the present moment and now and the next step and this tent and that mountain is all there fucking is. And you just feel like you're not disconnected, you're like completely consciously connected. Like you can almost feel the cells in your body. Like it's like, that's how like in tune you are.
That's why sometimes I think like humans don't truly know their potential.
Nah.
When people say like for example, for you, like I got a question for you. Like, what do you think in comparison to creativity versus AI?
In terms of
human creativity versus AI?
Yeah.
What
I think that it's to a certain extent it's human creativity that basically invented AI, right? So there's always going to be a certain amount of parameters that AI is going to basically sort of work from, and yes, it'll sort of like, it will learn and develop and grow in and of itself. It's a great book by Mo Gaudat. He was the chief operations officer of Google X, I believe. And he's been on the Diary of a CEO podcast as well. I read his book called Scary Smart. It's about like his predictions about the future of AI and how it's going to like obviously transform and that kind of thing. But very, very, very much it's going to become a lot more powerful than humans in that 3D capacity. But it's going to be very much based around the emotional state the human race is in at the time of creation and evolution. So for example, like that's the one thing that it just won't ever be able to sort of replicate.
You said 3D, in the 3D realm. What do you mean by 3D? And just for the viewers, like, Can you explain what do you mean by 3D, 4D?
Yeah. So the way that I look at it is the 3D is everything that we can like, think, hear, touch, feel, and it's very like logic based. It's very logic based reasoning. Whereas the 4D is like the energetic element that like ties it all together. You can't see and you can't feel with your hands or touch like from a sense perspective, but it's always like just ever present. It's like the latent energy that like has basically created like all of these kind of things. Like everything that we basically see, and like every single innovation, every single invention, it's the thought energy that like will create the next iteration of like the camera lens, or the next iteration of like clothing, or like music, or whatever it basically is.
Right.
It's that like deep state creative force.
Yeah. Like it's like another dimension.
It's another dimension that you're always connected into if you so choose to realize that you're always connected into it and trust in it.
How deep do you reckon it goes? How many dimensions deep do you reckon it goes?
It's hard to say. I haven't gone into like metaphysics to like that level kind of thing, but I just know there's always that greater power and that kind of thing ever present. And I think that I don't think that AI is basically essentially the ingenuity behind it has come from that dimension, but like the nature of AI,
it's limited to the constraints of the theory.
Exactly. I don't think it's going to be able to access that dimension, and that's the dimension that's like the thought creative energy that comes in that creates all of this, and that created AI as well.
What would you say to someone who's like, well, your brain is the one that's creating the thought, not the thought coming into the brain? Like a materialist, for example, when they say that the brain function creates electricity, the electricity in the brain creates thoughts that allows communication to go on, and that then goes on to allow us to create. What would you say to that?
It's an interesting question. I think it's just like you almost have to understand that like all of this all came from an energy which essentially created thought in the first place. And every iteration and every innovation on something, it's like if you can't see it but you create it from your mind, then it needs to come from a dimension greater than the material world. Like when records turn into CDs, or records turn into tape cassettes, turn into CDs, turn into MP3s, turn into like files, turn into like streaming, turn into this. Every single iteration of that like innovation across music had come from an imagination or an imaginative thought that didn't exist in the 3D world, that came from material reality. So that's a connection to a creative consciousness that doesn't like exist in what you can basically see, but you're always connected into.
That's so interesting, because when I was in the Amazon rainforest, we were in a ceremony, and this idea came to me about this type of reality. And I was just like sitting in ceremony, eyes are closed, visions are pure 3D. Like you can see so clearly in your mind, like it's just like me and you are sitting here. And this exact idea came to me of how we manifest our reality, and it's through our thoughts, through creativity and focus. And then I was just, went on my journey 4 years after, and I realized that's something I got to create, a documentary. So past four years, I've been working on this documentary called Focativity. Focus plus creativity equals manifestation.
Yeah.
The whole documentary is about manifestation. And me creating the documentary to the point that it is now was also me employing the techniques of manifestation to get the people that I have on board. So I was like, hey, who is the best exemplars of manifestation? It's the people who have created the coolest products and brands and influenced some of the greatest gadgets on the planet. So I started reaching out to leaders from Bugatti, Porsche, Ferrari, and I've secured the cast members for this. We've got visionaries from Bugatti, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Sony, Ubisoft, Intel, Creative Ladder, founded by Ryan Reynolds and Deanna Dorsey, and just recently we secured a deal with Beast Philanthropy. So that's the offshoot of Mr. Beast's brand. And only a while ago I was just driving here and I realized I was like, fuck man, like 4 years ago, if I asked myself that I'd be working with these people, I'd be like, no, I'm not. And now I'm in the same domain as some of the best manifestors on the planet, and I'm putting them all on one platform, and they're going to be sharing how they created their unique products or their ideas and their inventions, and to give that digital legacy, that knowledge to the human species, so that they can employ it and they can move out of this 3D limited constraints of how we create reality. So it's like, I don't know where the idea came from, but I know it came to me for a reason. And I've just been working hard on it, and now I think things are really taking shape, and I'm pretty excited with the next few steps.
That's incredible. And like, you know, to say like to exactly what you just said about like when you think about the people that you're getting to work with on this now, that you just could never even imagined it like back then. It's, of course you couldn't have imagined it back then, because like what you could actually see from your like imagine if you just decided to create that just from like what you could see or what you could think, or from like the reality that you basically had then. It's like there'd be no way to access those kinds of people based on what you could see, but you had like a vision and a thought and a quest that you like put out into the field of what you wanted to create on a certain time frame, a certain time horizon. You knew exactly what the end outcome was going to be, but you had no idea how you're going to get there, but you started just marching towards it. And when you march towards it, it's like, that's the biggest thing that I've realized is
it's a synchronization of both systems,
full synchronization.
And
it's
you
like,
start believing.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this guy, and it's not even you start believing. It's just like you have to believe, because the second you're in sync with that vision, you start marching down that direction. You get a few tests first to make sure that like the universe is just like, hey, does this guy actually want this, or is this actually what he's put on the planet to basically kind of create, or you know, put out into the world? But the second you sort of get past that, you start getting some real momentum. It's like, that's when I realized it's like, if you say that this is going to take you 3 or 4 years or 5 years, it will take you that much, because that's like the cadence and the pace you've kind of put to it. But there's people that have done crazy shit in like 6 months, right? It's almost like, if you said, like, if you had that vision, you're like, cool, I want to bring this to life in like fucking in a year as opposed to 4 or 5. You like, I've stopped even putting time constraints on shit. Because I'm just like, it'll probably happen way faster if you just like start sort of marching towards it.
How do you work with forcing then? Like, for example, like there's been a lot of times where I can't force a cast member. Like I can't be like, hey bro, you keen? Like I just kind of leave it, and there'll be literally months. And then I get a reply like, hey man, sorry, I was just busy, we're ready to go. Yeah. And usually that event would happen after I change my emotional signature. Yeah. I'd have a feeling of release. I'd feel it in my body. I'd feel very calm. I'd feel very clean. I'd feel very directed towards my reality. And then bang, body would tingle. Within a few seconds, I'd get a message. And now it's just like a repeatable pattern that I'm picking it up. Like right when something's about to manifest in my life, my body tingles and I'm like, something's going to happen. And it comes in weird and unique ways. And I'm like, dude, I'm actually infecting reality with my emotions, my thoughts. Like it's actually like I'm seeing the result of it happening now. Like there is no outer reality. It's all one unified field. And it's like, I'm not the subject and object. I am the thing, and everything is the thing. Like it's just one giant organism. Right? And it's like whatever I'm trying to manifest already exists. The only reason why it doesn't exist right now is because I'm looking at it from a 3D perspective in linear time. But if you move out and think of time as non-linear and all realities exist simultaneously, you just have to move into that reality and it's there.
Have you read the book Reality Transurfing?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's a unique. You've just sort of like articulated the exact idea of that book. It's kind of like it's a classic like manifestation like book where he just talks about like in the world there is there's infinite lifelines, and like the whole idea behind reality transurfing is you're like surfing on a current lifeline, but you can just choose to surf on a different lifeline that has like a completely different reality outcome. Like, you know, for example, like and almost to the point where it's like not even to do with your life. Like in the FIFA World Cup, right? Like if like Argentina are the champions on one lifeline, there's actually another lifeline that exists like 100% simultaneously where like, you know, France might be the champions. And it's almost like you literally like you then decide which lifeline that you. I mean, obviously it's hard to, I guess, affect like things outside of your control, reality or whatever. But like that lifeline already exists. There's a lifeline that basically exists where Kenya are the FIFA World Cup champions. It's just like it's just. There's infinite possibilities of realities across infinite different situations. There's lifelines that exist that beanbag's actually a blue beanbag as opposed to a red beanbag. It's like all of these things kind of like almost exist basically at once, and you just essentially like choose which lifeline you want to surf. Yeah. That you can just like transurf across like multiple different realities. And if you just choose like this is the pathway that I want to basically live, it's like cool. That lifeline already exists. Just like transition to that lifeline and start surfing that one.
I was in a ceremony in the rainforest again, and exactly what you said, infinite, and everything just eyes were closed, and I'm deep in this ceremony, man. You're in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. There's a natural energy to the rainforest, like the lungs of the planet. And then you can hear all the life, the crickets, the birds, there's night birds. And you're just sitting there, you're like, holy crap. Like, you don't even need to be on any psychedelics to feel the psychedelic experience the Amazon can give you. But then when you go on a psychedelic with a trained practitioner and who knows what they're doing, they can take you to places that I was not even able to conceive was possible. And I remember this one vision very clearly. I was sitting there and infinite reality started appearing in front of me, and it was showing me that I'm moving through these infinite realities at infinite paces at times. But sometimes what happens is that I'm going too fast in my mind, that I'm not aware, I'm not able to observe that I've already shifted and jumped into another reality. And the difference in that reality is very subtle. So like, it could be right now, we're sitting over here, we've moved through infinite realities over 1 billion times, but we just haven't noticed the subtle changes. Like maybe, in the other reality, like this little mark's not there. It's very, very subtle. And the more slower, the more present in the moment you can go, the more you can observe, like, I've jumped. Like I'm in a different space. So I'm trying to embody that more, and hasn't really, there's been points, but it's like, I'm just like, just stay focused and just be in 3D right now.
Yeah.
Just
focus
on your business.
That's why I'm that's why I love the blending of the 3D and the 4D, because I think that, like,
it's got to be grounded in the 3D.
You have to ground in the 3D, and the 3D obviously exists for a reason, to bring like structure and actual, like, without the structures of the 3D, you couldn't like bring that conscious energy to life and sustain it. Because I mean, like, our bodies are the best creation or manifestation that like consciousness basically essentially has created through the structures of the 3D. And we keep evolving them, for example, with like Neuralink and like with the Google glasses and all these different kinds of things. We're consistently evolving that, because like, I think the whole, like,
would you get the Neuralink?
Sorry,
would you get the Neuralink?
I'm undecided. I'm undecided. I think, I can't answer that question sort of like right now. I'm just very like, I'm absolutely loving the journey the way that it basically is at the moment. But like, if my life pathway essentially took me down that, like, I'd have to be, I guess, like, unattached to the idea that I wouldn't get it, and I just fucking get it anyway. If like it was like presented to me like right then, I was like, fuck yeah, let's go, kind of thing. Yeah.
Just the impulse purchase.
Yeah. But like, it's
brains there.
But it's like one of those things where it's like the 3D essentially exists to bring order and structure, and the 4D to life.
How did you implement all of these philosophies into your business then? Because what do you do as a business?
So I run a digital growth marketing agency called Aligned Agency. Yeah. So we started in 2015 when I was still at university, because I applied for a bunch of internships at different marketing agencies and that kind of thing, and like couldn't break through to get that internship or whatever. And then around the time I actually read like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek, and I was like, this is the very, very, very first time that I kind of tapped into the whole manifestation sort of side of things.
Yeah, okay.
I was working at JB Hi-Fi at the time.
Good old JB.
Yeah, fuck, I love JB Hi-Fi. Still, like, is in like a couple of my boys like still work there.
So much money there.
100%.
That's not even necessary, man. I'm like buying random USBs and shit.
Yeah. Every single, it's like the Bunnings for tech folk.
Yeah, for nerds.
Yeah, and Bunnings for nerds, 100%.
Yeah.
So I was working at JB Hi-Fi at the time. I decided, fuck, I'm gonna give this my own business thing a go, because from the 4-Hour Workweek, it basically talked about like how, there's a whole world of overseas staff members that basically exist through these platforms like Elance and Upwork and that kind of thing, that you can basically tap into global talent that's extremely skilled in all these technical domains, and you can build a wicked little outsource team, and then build like a business that you can obviously run online and like get into that whole sort of side of things. And I was like, right, that sounds amazing. I'm super young. I've got absolutely nothing to lose. And I'm like, fucking internship for all these like people that's not going to give me one kind of thing. So it was out of like a bit of rejection kind of thing. I was like, fuck this, I'm going to do it myself basically. And then finally enough, I was like, cool, this is exactly what I want to do.
Every entrepreneur has been rejected.
100%.
I think that's like the fuel to their creation. 100%. Like, you're going to reject me? I'll show you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is, it's a great like starting spot. Yeah, but you don't want to be stuck in that.
You don't want to be stuck. You want to use it you want to transmute that energy.
100%. Isn't like, that just needs to be like the flame that basically just like lights the fire, and then like the fire just to glow and like, provide light and guidance like with a brightness and very little dark energy to it kind of thing.
Right.
So it was like one of those things. It got me going, but like I didn't stay in that like I'm going to prove you wrong, because then you're not building a business for yourself, you're building a business for someone else, right? But so at that stage, I was just like, right, this is amazing. All I need to do is get like a couple of clients to start experimenting with this sort of side of things and like go from there. And like back then it's just like, well, how the fuck am I going to do that? Because obviously it's like, you know, so the idea came to me because I was working in like a JB Hi-Fi. I was like, anyone that comes in that says it's a business purchase and wants like an ABN on the receipt, I'm just going to ask them like what they do for a living. And like, you know, I was just like, I want to be a marketing agency owner. So I'm just going to tell them that I've got a marketing agency, and I'm just going to like basically just like see if I can provide some value to them, and then just like work it out of the back end of that, right?
That's so cheeky.
Dude, the very first person that I served, and like I still talk to him, like I still send him a message every year on my business anniversary. I'm like, mate, thank you so much. I'm so grateful because of you. This all kind of happened, or you know, because you kind of kickstarted the first thing. This guy called Nathan, he'd already made a bunch of money in like in financial publishing, that kind of thing as well. Came in, was buying a big 27-inch Mac. I was like, cool, what's this for? Is it for home, for work, blah blah blah. Doing my whole sales pitch, and he's like, yeah, I've got like a backyard studio where I'm just like running a couple of online businesses and this and that and the other. And I was like, oh yeah, funny you mentioned that. I've actually I've just started a marketing agency. Like I help entrepreneurs just like yourself with like digital marketing and this. And he was like, right, that's interesting. Like, and then like, got into a bit of a chat as to what he did. And then he was running a modular housing, kind of like converting shipping containers into backyard studios kind of a business. We got chatting, and then like I made up a JB Hi-Fi business card, wrote my name and my phone number down on the back of it, and I was like, look, if you need any help with any like with any of your businesses, like, you know, I'd love to kind of jump on board and help with the strategy sort of things, that kind of thing. I think he probably figured out that I was very, because he was asking me a few questions in regards to my experience and that kind of thing, that I was like sort of waffling on and kind of bullshitting. Funnily enough, so he then calls me, we catch up for a coffee in Scarborough. And he very quickly realized that I was like super green and didn't really have any kind of experience, but he loved the hustle. He loved that I was obviously like, you know, working at JB Hi-Fi. He'd already made his money in financial publishing. He'd launched his business, and he kind of wanted like a young, driven, like internal marketing coordinator. He built a bunch of his businesses using 4-hour workweek principles, outsourcing to the Philippines, to India, and that kind of thing as well. And he already had an outsourced team working for him. So he taught me from day one this thing that I was thinking about basically doing after reading in the 4-hour work week, and then being like, fuck it, I want to give it a go. So I set my intention and started walking the pathway. The very first person that I talked to turned out to be my first mentor that introduced me to digital marketing, outsourcing systems, how to grow a team like around the world. And he was a successful entrepreneur kind of in his own right. Worked with him for 6 months, found a bunch of staff members for him off of Elance and Upwork. And this is like back in 2014, when it was like not mainstream in any way, shape or form of doing so. My parents had no idea what the fuck what I was doing. Everyone at university was just like, how are you acing all these assignments? Because I'll get the assignments, I just outsource it on Elance for $100, get it done by a professional, and then like hand it in, and like getting these amazing marks and that sort of stuff like that. And it was crazy because then at the end of that, I was like, man, I've got an idea like for a marketing agency, because now that I know that you can do like SEO, Google ads, web dev, all that kind of thing like overseas, if I just had the clients here and like just dealt with the clients and had all the work done like overseas kind of thing as well, and like just gave them a really good experience, like I reckon I could crush it. And then he was like, gave me $2,000, and he was just like, use this, like I don't want any shares, anything like that, just use this to build your first website, and you know, like hire your first team members and get a couple of clients on board, that kind of thing. Because like I worked with him for 6 months and built up a really strong connection, really strong friendship. Started that business and literally started cold calling tradies out of Gumtree to get them off of Gumtree and basically onto Google, and then built my first outsource team. And this is all within 6 months of meeting him. It already came into reality. And then in my final year of uni, which is 2015, I turned over $110,000 in my first business while still in the final year of university kind of thing.
Damn.
And from there I was making enough to like not have to get a job. So I just moved out of home. And that was another crazy story in terms of like at the start of 2015, I basically wrote down, by the end of this year, I want to be earning 6 figures. I want to be living in an apartment overlooking the city, like over the river. I want to be like traveling around the world for 12 weeks a year and working 40 weeks. I always had this like intuition that 40 and 12 lifestyle is kind of what I wanted. And then once again, like November 2015, like I joined this online business program like based in Melbourne, like one of the early days. And one of the guys that was in that had a house on the foreshore in Perth. And then like literally like to the day, I moved in on like December 28th, 2015. into this really nice house on the South Perth foreshore, into a house full of entrepreneurs, like overlooking the entire city.
Nice.
And that next year, I traveled for 12 weeks, I worked for 40 weeks, and I earned my 6 figures. Like, and then I was just like, at that stage, it was the first kind of time where I was making decisions as to what I wanted to do, and I was writing down everything that I basically wanted to achieve, and all these different, and it all started coming into reality. And then like, it was weird because then I was just like, everything I was writing down and I was working towards just kept coming true. And I wasn't quite conscious of manifestation at that point, but it was happening to me. And then as I became more aware of like this whole world of like spirituality, manifestation, creating your own reality, that kind of thing as well, I was like, fuck, I've been tapped into this stuff for a long time without even kind of realizing.
What's next on your plate? Like, what's something that big that you really want to bring into reality?
So at the moment, there's a like loving the marketing agency journey, but there's a product that I want to bring into the world. When I was in the Himalayas, like it's very easy to get like very sick there because obviously you're in like like horrific weather conditions. You're living out of tents. You're eating all this foreign food, all that kind of thing as well. And I had a very strict supplementation protocol when I was there, like taking 5 different supplements to keep my internals kind of regulated, like as best that I possibly could, so I could like maximize the expedition. And I actually didn't get sick the entire time, whereas everyone else did that I was with, basically. So I was like, I want to combine all of those into one supplement for anyone going on like travels, adventures, expeditions, and all in one supplement that basically keeps your health, your wellness, and your immunity and your recovery all aligned, so you can maximize the value out of every adventure. Because most people get like,
call it
OptiVenture.
OptiVenture.
Yeah.
I thought Align would have been a good name.
Well, the parent company, we've already founded it. It's called Align Supplements Pty Ltd.
Okay.
That's like the parent corporation. But the first product is, and we've got all these ideas for different products and that kind of thing that we want to basically do. But the first one's going to be like the all-in-one adventure multi that has like extremely high quantities of like all your critical vitamins and minerals, plus an immunity complex, plus a gut support complex with like probiotics, plus like a recovery complex with like, you know, zinc, magnesium, turmeric, like omega-3s, all that kind of thing as well.
Who's partnering with you on this?
So one of my best mates, Cam. So he's basically like, you know, one of the biggest adventure influencers in Australia.
Yeah, okay.
So, and we're both really passionate and really pumped about it, but it was one of those things where we couldn't make that up. That vision that came to us, you can't make that up without like living the experience. And then like, as we're walking down from like Amadalbum towards a town, it just like almost punched me in this idea like punched me in the fucking face. And then like, I've described it to like Lockie and Cam, and then straight away, like Lockie's straight on ChatGPT and is like, you should either call it Trail Guide or OptiVenture. And I was like, I fucking love OptiVenture. Well, actually, no, we're going to call it Trail Guide at the start, but then we realized OptiVenture had like a broader target market, and it was like, it all just came to, and then like, we just couldn't let go of that idea. So that's something that I'm really passionate about at the moment. But what's crazy is, in like, you know, you talk about a dream co-founder, right? Like, Cam, one of the biggest adventure influencers, like he's got such a loyal following, 250,000 followers and growing on Instagram. Like he's as passionate about health and wellness and adventure and that kind of thing. In fact, probably even more than I am, because he literally is that guy. But like, I've had so many years of experience in business now and creating these things like from the ground up, that like, he's the perfect partner for me, I'm the perfect partner for him, and we complement each other so well. And it's all coming to life very quickly.
Yeah, that's sick.
So that was really fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's one thing at the moment that I'm just like, it'd be amazing to bring that out into the world.
That's dope. I've recently developed this product. I've done with the prototype, I've done with the boxing. It's called the Creator. Yeah. It's literally called the Creator. And what it does is, all you have to do is use it for 2 minutes a day, and it increases levels of creativity, increases levels of focus. It increases heart and brain coherence, meaning that, you know, there's 2 fundamental systems. You got the brain system, and then you got the heart system. Modern science is now showcasing the heart has its own ability to think, go and make decisions, and even remember. It's got its own nervous system inside of it. So when these 2 systems are synchronized, your manifestation abilities are enhanced, because now the mind and body are one, rather than the mind thinking this way and the body thinking this way. So I was like, what's the biggest problem right now? People don't have time to go to the Himalayas. People don't have time to go 6 months into the Amazon rainforest. How can we give them a product, a technique that they can employ just by 2 minutes use a day?
Head heart coherence, in a box kind of thing.
Yeah, literally. Well, it's a little device. It's got a specific vibrational algorithm that you place on your heart. You do a little meditation. That's it.
That's incredible.
All you need to do is 2 minutes a day.
Sign me up.
Check it out, man. I'll show you later on.
Yeah, dude, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Is it in production or is it already produced?
It's done.
Good to go. Yeah, amazing.
And the more science I read behind it, the more insane it's blowing me away, because there's literally insane studies showcasing the benefits of gratitude and how it actually affects your whole physiology, how it unlocks certain nervous system functions that allow you to focus better, enhance creativity, create brain synchronization. And it's, for the first time, I'm seeing it from a scientific perspective also, which is also, you could say it's a spirituality perspective too, but you know, for where I want to deliver it to the world, they need solid concrete evidence to see. And I can't go up to them and tell them, hey, look, I created all of this and this happened because I believed and I manifested and I used my heart. No, they want to see the science first.
100%.
Right? And then once they start seeing the results, they'll be like, this is fucking insane.
And then buy into it more and more and more. And then discover like the next layer.
Yeah.
The next layer of like, then discover the 4D exists basically.
That's exactly it.
And that's like, so one thing that, again, wicked that we're having this conversation. Like one of the things that I also want to like bring into the world is basically just like my personal brand and that kind of thing. Like very practical spirituality.
That's it.
Practical spirituality.
That's literally what I wanted to do too. Because it's like, I think I've been just gifted to be able to have these experiences, and now my job is to be able to give people who are very busy this practical spirituality.
Very busy and rooted into like the 3D.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is amazing. I mean, like obviously there's so like, especially engineer types and that kind of thing as well, that are just so like locked into the 3D sort of side of things. They just think that like all of this stuff is just like, oh, woo-woo bullshit or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, even Lockie, man, like we've got him doing breath work and that sort of stuff now. He's like the ultimate, like, just so like, I am like very proud of the fact that he's not spiritual like at all. And now we're getting him into doing like a bit more breath work and a few more meditations and that kind of thing as well. He's like sort of starting to see the benefits and one of those guys is like, oh mate, spirituality is kind of like a bit of bullshit sort of thing. But then like you ask him about his entire life story and how he ended up on Survivor and The Bachelor and this and that, and he was basically like, yeah, so I just kind of just like just said yes to everything and just saw like, you know, just like saw where life took me. I'm like, so you basically just trusted that like everything's guiding you in the right pathway. I'm like, and he's like, well, yeah. And I was like, that's the most spiritual approach to life you can possibly have. He's like, but spirituality is bullshit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Which is so funny.
Yeah.
But I think practical spirituality is like so important, because like every single person can benefit from it like massively, but you have to meet people basically where they're at and they can delve into it a bit further, or they might not want to delve into it a bit further, but at least like, so I love that. I love that your product is very rooted in like the science for the more, not the non-believers, but more of the skeptics that could sort of benefit from it. And a lot of the content that I want to start putting out and that kind of thing is around that, like, because a lot of the conversations that we've had is probably just like, whereas like if we dial that conversation down like a little bit, to something that's a bit more palatable, and like, because obviously we're at different stages of like evolutions in our journey and that kind of thing as well, but like if I listen to this kind of a conversation like fucking 5 years ago, like that's gone way over my head. But if you start with the little things, you start with the gratitude journaling, you start with a bit of breathing, you start like with a connection, you start with not taking things personally, and that can be a revolutionary idea to people in terms of like a failure.
Yeah, you're right.
Doesn't mean that you're
somewhere at their own levels. The way that I see it now is like, you know, spirituality is experience, science is the language to be able to decode that experience. And people need to have the language who haven't had the experience, so that they can understand, go from the language to the experience. They need the pathway. So it's like, I'm not claiming that I I'm going to show you the pathway, but I've been able to do something in my life which has tremendously benefited me in every way possible, and I'm genuinely in a happy place. Not all the time, you know what I mean? Like there is my moments.
100%.
And I'm like, man, if I could share this with the world, and if they benefit from it, take it. If you don't, you can go do your other thing. Go play golf. Go have a wank. Go do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Don't fucking bother me. This is what I've created. Take it or what? Yeah.
I love that. So is it out for sale at the moment?
No.
Yeah, but it's in production basically.
So the prototype's done. Actually, the way I designed it was pretty funny. It was I was in my house with my partner, with my daughter, and I was like, man, how can I bring this technology to life? It's like, number one, you saw the logo on it, right? That's the Infinity logo. Yeah. So I started designing it with I needed Play-Doh, but I didn't have Play-Doh, so I went and got flour and I put it in water, and I made my own Play-Doh at home, and I started designing the style, and I started then designing the technology inside, which is a very simple technology, to be honest. The technology helps you access the greatest technology on the planet, which is you.
Yeah.
So you're not putting it acts as a habit creator. Every day, the more you sit down and the more you practice gratitude, the more you practice going into your heart space, the more you practice this heart and brain synchronization, the more deeper then you can start embodying your reality that you want to create. People don't have the habit. That's what I want to create. And 2 minutes a day, come on.
100%.
In the shower, it's waterproof, IP67, like it's chilling, it's got magnetic charge, like it comes in a hemp case. It's just a cool little product. I gotta show you, man.
I would love to, like,
Yeah.
because I'm just thinking, like, so I just start my day.
Well, I'll do my real world test on you.
Yeah, that'd be incredible.
Yeah.
And I'll send you I'll send you the first batch of OptiVenture is going to be ready in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, done.
So start smashing those.
So where can people connect with you for OptiVentures, and where can they get this type of stuff?
So at the moment, like, best way to connect with me is Instagram, just like at Hursh Dodhia-Shah. That's probably where I'm the most connected, so like the most reachable. My business is called Aligned Agency, so we rebranded from Trade Design to Aligned because obviously, like, everything that I do is basically about like alignment of like heart, body, mind, and soul kind of thing. So alignedagency.com.au is the website. Just my personal Instagram, like, I'm pretty responsive with that kind of thing, sort of on there as well. And that's probably the best way to get in touch, to be honest.
Sick, man. I think that at some point we're gonna have to do a part 2. That was good, man.
Dude, 100%. We definitely need to connect on a part 2, and we definitely have to, like, chat a lot more, man. That was awesome.
So you guys know where to connect with him, and if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. Thank you.